We have an address by Dr. Rohan Pallewatta. Dr. Rohan is one of the most colorful and eclectic Sri Lankans whom we can meet. He graduated in Languages and Humanities from Kalani University and thereafter eventually wound up heading innovative automotive assembly components manufacturing plant. He speaks the Japanese language fluently and travels very often to Japan and has played a huge role in consolidating friendship between our two countries. We are indeed privileged to have Dr. Pallewatta with us this evening, and I'm sure he will keep us regaled with all his wonderful experiences. Thank you.
固い絆に思いを寄せて語り尽くせる青春の日々時には傷つき時には喜び肩を叩き合ったあの日あれからどれくらい経ったのだろう沈む夕日をいくつ数えたろふるさとの友は今でも君の心の中にいますか乾杯今君は人生の大きな舞台に立ち遥かな大地のりを歩き始めた君に幸せあれ君に幸せあれ Members of the head table, Sri Guratna, and members of the audience. I'm going to touch on the basics and I'm not going to touch on any technicalities. The first thing that if you want to do business with Japan and if you want to find inroads into the hearts of immediate Japanese investors, because once they are here, as it was said by the previous speaker, they will not come tomorrow and invest the next day. They will have many visits to Sri Lanka because their planning takes a long time. So during these visits, you will have many tense occasions. Right? There will be negotiations, hard negotiations. But at the end of the day, they will say, Ishoni Sopinishima, let's have dinner together. So when you go to dinner, if you can pick up an instrument, a guitar, and play a Japanese song, that will find a shortcut, and that will ease all the tensions that you had during the day, which will overwhelm, to ensuring and closing the deal in the long run. And then the small video, I will comment on this once you watch it.
Do keynotes across the globe. And while it's easy for me to be here in Las Vegas, it isn't always easy for me to travel across the world. And even when I do, I can't always speak the local language. What if neither language nor distance matter for me to deliver a fantastic keynote? What if technology can help me be anywhere I needed to be and speak any language I wanted? Well, it can. We are bringing together the power of mixed reality and Azure AI services to create a truly game-changing experience. What you're about to see is an exact hologram of me wearing the same outfit that we recently captured at a mixed reality studio. And I don't speak Japanese, but what if I wanted to deliver my keynote in Japanese? Using Azure AI technology, I can translate my English into Japanese and train it to sound exactly like me. The same voice tones, those same inflections. And we brought this together, my hologram and Azure AI, to show you what's possible. So first, I'm going to put on my HoloLens 2 here.
せんが、私の声とホログラムは完璧な日本語で話しています。これはニューラルテキスト読み上げと呼ばれる最新の人工知能技術、いわゆるニューラル TTS を使用しています。私たちは自分の声の録音を使用し、私のように聞こえる私自身の個人的な音声書面を作成します。日本語からフランス語、ポルトガル語まで話せます。今、この技術は私たちが働き、遊び、生活する方法に関して、世界中の国境や障壁を取り除くことができると想像してみてください。まさに SF が現実になるところです。
When I told them at the university to learn another language, they said the technology is such that they don't need to learn another language. But let me reiterate the fact, the importance of learning Japanese if you want to do business with the Japanese. Because there's a research findings show that 9 times out of 10, the Japanese person would do business with a person that speaks his own language, that is Japanese. So if you think doing business after about 100 years, 50 years, that's fine not to learn the language. But if you want to do business in the next year, next 25 years, still I trust that the bonds that you can create, the relationships that you can create, two people talking to each other without a translator, with the same language, will never be replaced by technology. And there are 2 ground rules when you work with the Japanese. Number 1, as I said, I'm talking about basics, be punctual. Because in Sri Lanka, as you know, our culture accommodates, if you're late 1 hour, still you expect the other person to accommodate you. But the Japanese, they are right on the dot. But one thing to be on the safe side, because you can be punctual yourself, but when you start a business, there are so many other organizations that you will have to work with. Sometimes you might have to work with some politicians as well. So just warn them in advance about our culture and tell them, have their mindset ready in case that some of your partners are going to let you down by not being punctual. And secondly, honesty is best policy. They might, as they pass by, they say, okay, I have decided to come. Can I purchase an apartment? What do you think the cost would be? If it is 100 million, don't think that you should buy one for yourself as well and go 200 million. Because they are going to find out anyway. And then that is going to dent into your long-term relationship. So be honest, and honesty is the best policy. And in order to get a manufacturing organization right, to get into business in the manufacturing sector, there are 3 things that you got to get right. That is the pricing, the quality, and then delivery. Now, as Sri Lankans, if you think all these costs that is involved in your production, with all that you can quote for a Japanese company, you are sadly mistaken. Because when you first get their quotations, you will be surprised. Most of the Sri Lankan companies are incompetent to meet these quotations, meet these expectations of the Japanese requirements. Because most of our companies are having waste. And then you have to introduce lean and you have to eliminate all the unnecessary processes from your organization. It is only then you can be in a position to have a quotation that would be accepted by the Japanese. And just getting some consultant and getting him to do some lean consultancy on lean manufacturing is not going to help. The top of the organization, he should live and breathe lean concept. Because he should go to the production line and to himself he should ensure what are the processes, what are the unnecessary processes that you could eliminate. Second thing is quality. Now my company has achieved and sustained 1 ppm quality for almost past 2 decades. And 1 ppm quality is the highest level of quality anywhere in the world. And in order to, you can achieve quality once, but sustaining quality is not an easy thing. You can copy the end product, but the quality is embedded in the process and not only in the end product. So it is easy for someone to copy the end product, but it is difficult to copy the process. So in order to maintain that 1 ppm quality, there are 2 things that I do in my company. One thing, I have a trust culture in place. What is trust culture? That means you trust everyone. Because in my company, there are no CCTV cameras fixed behind the employees to monitor them. There is no supervisory grade. By having a trust culture that connects to the lean concept, you are eliminating all unnecessary processes because you trust your workers. Because I personally believe the moment you fix a camera behind a human being, you are encroaching human dignity. And your employees start working because they are being supervised, because there is a camera behind them. And that is the wrong reason to work, the wrong reason to motivate them. So you cannot achieve 1 ppm quality if this is the style of, that if you are trying to supervise them and get the work done. So trust culture is a must if you have to achieve the level of 1 ppm quality. And also, there are indicators to show that trust culture works in my organization. Because, Your Excellency, during the past 20 years, I think almost all my employees, they have been to Japan on training. But sending them to Japan for training is not the thing, but getting them back. I have to tell you very proudly that 100% of my employees, they have returned to Sri Lanka after their training in Japan. 100%. And even Mr. Hobo, the previous Japanese ambassador, His Excellency paid a visit to my factory several times to find out as to what is the management tool that I was using in order to get these people back. Myself being an attorney at law, he thought that I must have drafted the most comprehensive bond agreement, but that is not the case. I don't get a single document signed. I just tell them, I trust that you will come back. And it has worked for me so far. And the second thing that I do is acculturation. Acculturation is an introduction of alien culture to the indigenous culture. If you ask, will it work? Yes, it has worked in my organization. There are many studies done by universities on whether acculturation is possible. It is possible. Because now most of our companies, they try to introduce concepts like Kaizen, Kanban, and all these 5S Japanese concepts. Right? But remember, you bring a plant from Japan and try to plant it here. And if soil conditions are not the same, it will not take root. It's similar. These Japanese concepts will not take root in your organization unless you do the mental preparation of your employees. So acculturation is one thing. I can pass over the Japanese culture to them because they go for training, one thing in Japan. And also there should be a culture catalyst who pass on this Japanese culture to your employees. And I have been inadvertently being the culture catalyst in my own organization. So when my employees go to Japan and when they come back, even the speed that they walk is changed. So acculturation is possible, and in order to achieve one-piece equality, I have been using acculturation as a tool. Then number 3 is delivery. My wife worked for branding some time back, and one day she was writing a report, how to improve on-time delivery up to 90%. I said, looking at this report, I said, you can never work for a Japanese company because delivery must be 100%. Once it happened in my company, I had told my employees, no excuses, shipment must be on time. And knowing the Sri Lankan mentality, I thought they might go wrong. So I had always given allowance at the outset, not right now, at the beginning of my organization. So one fine day, as much as I thought, when I went to my organization, my company, the faces of the leaders, we have a leader class, we don't have, as I said, administrative processes, we don't have a telephone operator. Their faces were different, their expressions were different. I asked why, what happened? They told me, so sorry, we couldn't send out yesterday's shipment. Then what I did was, I said, all right, with all the employees, I want to trust them. And I told you from the beginning, I've been telling you every day that on-time delivery is a must. If you do not deliver on time, the companies whose processes will be disturbed are Toyota, Nissan, and that kind of big companies. So therefore, there is no excuse. And the only thing that we have to do now is to close this organization. And then the employees were, howling and crying and, And actually I kept them away from work for 3 days. Of course I have done my planning in advance. And from then onwards, after 3 days, I said, okay, I got a special apology from the Japanese. And then I got them back to the company. And that happened almost 9 years ago. And to date, we have not had a single shipment delayed from the company. So that is the level of sometimes you have to adopt in making the Sri Lankans understand what the Japanese require. Then your physical presence in Japan, to start your business, your frequent visits to Japan is very important. They will say they will go out for dinner. In Sri Lanka, most of us, we don't know what is nijikai. After dinner, they go out hubbing, they go out for another place. So that is also very important. So after dinner, don't just say, okay, all right, I'm retiring back to my hotel. They will always organize a nijikai for you. And also remember, if you can learn to play golf, that will be an advantage to create a close rapport with the higher-ups of Japanese companies. Once again, basics. Remember that gifts are very important when you deal with the Japanese culture. They will always bring you a gift and ensure that you return the favor. And also remember that it is the responsibility of the Sri Lankan party. If you are partnering with the Japanese, it is the responsibility of the Sri Lankan party to ensure that there are no industrial disputes in the organization. So my personal advice to you, this is very personal, don't quote me. Don't let any labor union come into your organization and start their work. Because in order to, the law of the land is such, they need the consent of 40% of your employees. So never let them reach that level. Keep your rapport with your employees intact and ensure there is no need of intervention of outside parties. The moment these organizations come, it has happened to few Japanese companies in Sri Lanka. So therefore ensure it is the responsibility of the Sri Lankan party to ensure that there is industrial peace. And also sometimes when there are things that are not going the way that you agree, you might take the agreement and try to quote certain agreements. Don't do that with the Japanese. Because practicality and trust is more important. Don't quote and say, this is what it is, not what is in the agreement, and try to dispute. Unless you are pushed to the wall and there's nothing that you can do. Try to resolve it without referring to the elements of your agreement. So those are the points that I would like to share as my experience. And special thanks to Mr. Gururatna for inviting me today. Thank you very much.